So hey all, I am busy working on a lot of editing right now. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to work that into my process because, um, a lot of the things that I've been trying to figure out and to work on have been very tricky and stuff that at least at one point or another I kind of actively avoided, like doing vlogs, which I used to kind of just have to work myself up to. Working on writing on a story that I wasn't sure exactly where it was headed, would be the kind of thing that I would kind of feel this pressure to get it right the first time. And whether or not that makes sense or not, this was kind of what I dealt with for a long time. Just trying to, right now the challenge is like editing and publishing, getting over that last couple of bits of hurdles, because I have two finished drafts of two projects that I'm pretty proud of, that I think are still in the stage where it's like one at least needs its first once over before it's ready to be given to beta readers, and the other one is trying to finalize it, clean up any issues, make it as good as I can make it before I finish the process. I thought I was at that point already, but there's some changes that I'm still going to make. So I may update the files that I already uploaded. I don't know, but if worst case scenario, the version that gets published might be a little different from the one that's online, just slightly. No major changes. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm sort of working on a new short story, which we'll talk about in a minute, and I'm also working on a couple of other things. Um, but editing is the big thing right now. I'm trying to figure out how to balance editing and writing and still have enough time to enjoy myself most nights, and kind of just figure out what I can do, how best I can utilize the time that I have, because I can't make any more time. I just have to figure out how to use the time I have as best as I can, and also how to not stress about it while I'm doing it, because that's part of the problem. Editing's stressful for me because it's just, if I'm not sure what to do, I start staring at the clock, and then I start stressing about not having anything productive to show for the time I spend editing, and then it just gets into one of those cycles and such. Now, I know there's no reason to be scared of editing or writing or any of that stuff, but it's like sometimes it's just hard to shut that off. And I'm sure most of you, if anyone's dealt with like mental health, anxiety, that kind of thing, it's like that it's not as simple as just telling yourself sometimes. Um, but I've been working on it. I've been, at the very least, I have two completed projects to show for it. Nothing published just yet, but it's finished. The draft is done. The first draft is done, so that's a big hurdle. And hopefully, I can get both projects out by the end of the year, and then just kind of settle into a cycle, which is what I would like to do. Ideally, my current would like goal, and again, I have no idea how feasible this is. I was hoping to have at least one project out the door by the start of this year. I was hoping to be able to do two big projects and four smaller ones over the course of the year. Sorted short stories, pretty much any area that is interesting to explore that wouldn't fit in a full novel. Things like that, sort of dip in and out of the other universes that I've created, sort of keeping them all busy and at least semi-active. And I have a couple of ideas for a couple more Winterfall stories. One that takes place sometime after The Dark Mile, and one that also takes place after the first book, which I am putting that on the back burner because it's going to be a bit. I'd like to get the first book out before I start working on books that bridge the gap between the two, stories that will bridge the gap between the two. And I guess I already kind of inadvertently started talking about writing news, but such is the case. So I guess the two segments are kind of mixed together in this instance, but I'm not going back to fix it because, it's all more or less six of one, half dozen of the other. But in writing news, I am working on a short story right now to take a break from the big projects while I figure out my next move. And it is called Threshold. And what I'll say about it right now is that the idea I had was that the train has kind of reached a decision point. They are at the area in their explorations when they can't go back to the garden every time they need a resupply. So they're going to have to start resupplying en route as they travel. Now, this will open up significant possibilities for how much further they can go. but it also potentially means that they'll be crossing the invisible line that, this is as far as we can go safely. Beyond this point, here there be dragons, that sort of thing. So obviously it's going to result in some conflict and another opportunity, I think, to dip into the early train, or at least the early train as far as Ellie is concerned. Because the characters in the Dark Mile will probably be the same characters, maybe with an addition or two for this new story, and we'll see a little bit more about Ellie's early years on the train, and I'm thinking it'll be an interesting point because, I mean, that's always the trick with short stories. Finding something that's interesting enough to justify a short story, but not so interesting it demands a whole book. And I think this is one of those things. This is one of those moments that I had never considered before, but it's one of the points, because right now, what I used to do is I used to kind of dip around on whatever idea caught my fancy. And the problem with that was that it resulted in, me having to deal with a constantly moving timeline. And the difference here is that by sticking to events that occur before the first book, I can just work on them, release them, and then keep moving. So I mean, instead of working on like ideas for maybe I can sort of stay where I am, so to speak. When I release the first book, I can start working on stories that precede the second, stories that fill the gap in between 1 and 2, and I can explore any ideas that I find in there, and so on and so forth going forward. So, that's kind of my plan. Building building the structure one level at a time. Because I came up with an idea that I wasn't really sure if I was going to integrate it into any of the books, but it also occurs to me that it would probably work really well in the prequel because it would sort of explain some things that are just not addressed in the main novels. But I'm not going to say what exactly they are yet, but it would make sense for it to be in the prequel rather than in one of the present-day stories, so to speak. Let's see. In video news, I am probably going to try and get some video footage for 2 videos. Next week, I'll probably try and start another production cycle. I don't know if I'm going to finish both videos today, but I would like to try and do a couple of book reviews, and I need to work on the author highlight, which of course will feature some discussion of some of my favorite furry authors. I was hoping to kind of have around 5, but so far I only have 4 that have fit in the category of ones that I really just are guaranteed purchases from me. That just I just like them. And they've been really good writers, really good stuff that fits. And so look forward to that in the near future. I'm also planning on eventually, continuing to do some more reviews. There will be one review that will probably be a pretty massive project. I haven't decided exactly how to break it down yet, but I want to review the CRVA, so it'll probably be done like the anthologies, with a longer video, but broken into segments like my reviews usually are. So that's probably going to be it. I'm going to try and complete and upload at least 1 review today, and maybe 2 if I have the time. It really just depends on how things go after I finish this vlog. Let's see. Insofar as books I'm reading, I'm still working on A Christmas Reunion. I am, I think, about almost 3/4 of the way through it now. I think that it's definitely grown on me more than it did when it started, because when I first began I was kind of hesitant, but I'm liking it more the further that I go, and I think it's kind of making more sense to me now. I'd say that I will have some comments, positive and well, I wouldn't necessarily say positive and negative, but I will have some comments on the project once I get closer to doing the actual review. But overall, I've been enjoying it. Now, I don't know if that means that I will continue to check out this author's work, but it's a possibility. I'll say that, because it's been decent. But I'm hoping it captures me, in the last quarter of the book. We'll see how the ending goes. But so far it's promising. I'm also still reading Patrick Stewart's autobiography, Making It So, which I'm kind of just doing that in a as I feel like it kind of mode, because I'm not in a hurry to finish his autobiography. I'm reading it a little bit at a time. I am enjoying it, and I'm learning a lot of things about Patrick Stewart that I never knew. And I think that once I finish it, I will probably do a video on it. Maybe not a traditional review because it's not exactly a fiction story, but nevertheless a highlight to recommend what I would think would be an interesting book, particularly for any fans of his work. Let's see. I also am working on reading Strange New Worlds: The High Kingdom, which is, I think, the first novel based, well, technically the second novel based on the current version of the Enterprise. Now, they did have the Enterprise War, which was to explain where the Enterprise was during the Klingon War, during the first season of Discovery, but it was written before Strange New Worlds was conceptualized, so it only has like Pike, Una, and Spock. The three characters that they confirmed up to that point, and other characters. I don't exactly remember the specifics. It's been long enough that I don't remember the details. But they were stuck in an area of space they couldn't get out of easily, so they were just kind of stuck for the mission's duration. And I remember it was a really good book, but this is the first one that actually deals with Strange New Worlds as we know it as a television show, with Ortegas and La'an and Hemmer and all the characters that they've introduced for the new series. So, so far it's decent. I have only cracked into what looks like the first 10% of it, but I'm going to read that, and then I'm probably going to go back to a couple of other things. I know I have a pretty substantial reading list right now. I think I have about a dozen projects on the to be read pile. There's at least a One Kill Gold book, which I've been saving. There's a couple of books from Royce Day, which is always a guaranteed good time. Let's see what else is there. I have Transformation from Bernard Dew, which I want to read and do a video review for, because it's one of the few pieces of his that I really thought was done well. And it's one of the pieces that I am a fan of. Let's see. I know I still have When the World Was Young to read, which has been on my reading pile for a while. But anthologies are always tricky because I like to read them and review each story individually. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I like doing it. But of course, obviously, it takes time because you have to read each individual story. And you can't do the review until it's all finished. Or I guess you could if you wanted to do bits and pieces. But for the levels of production that I have, I just don't have that capability. I usually have a couple hours every other week to work on video stuff. So that's kind of what I try and batch my stuff and provide as high a production value as I can. But as far as the immediate plan, I should also say that it's pretty likely that I'm not going to be at TFF this year for a few reasons. One, I was hoping to be able to maybe have something to sell at Artist Alley there, and I do still have Blue Moon, which is released and is in the bag, so to speak. But I was also hoping to be able to release Winterfall there. And part of the issue with that is that I do not necessarily know if I will have time to complete the editing and publishing before that convention happens. And added to the fact that I don't have a room right now, and it just seems like it's just almost guaranteed to be a non-issue unless somebody, even if somebody were to guarantee me the space at this point, I don't know if it's something I would be able to do this year. Now, in the hopes of being able to do it some other time in the future, I picked up some acrylic sign holders and a tablecloth that hopefully will one day serve me in some capacity. But, for right now, there's a lot of other things that I have to do, and I just don't think it's going to happen. So for now, I'm tentatively penciling my next convention to be Star Trek Las Vegas. As far as if I do anything else this year, it's majorly question mark, but I want to make some significant progress in my literary endeavors this year. So it's like I'm going to be working on some stuff. I'd like to try and maybe, even though it's like I know I have a completed outline for 3, 4, and 5 of Winterfall. I have a completed outline for Lucy and Kate's adventure, and I have a partial outline for the first book in the Sunset's Edge series and the first book in the Blue Moon 2. I still have a couple of projects with that, an anthology that I never finished, and the second book, which the plot has shifted a little bit. I think I wrote long time ago. I wrote like 2/3 of it, and then I just decided to start over because some of it worked, some of it didn't, and it was before I had refined a lot of my techniques, a lot of how I map out stories, and also a lot of how it's like ideas occurred to me that hadn't occurred to me before. So I'm kind of looking at it as like I had to be this version of me to make that happen. So let's see, what else is there? I mean, I guess that's it for now. Just going to try and be working on a lot of things going forward, and just trying to keep making forward progress and not stress myself out too much. But one thing at a time. We'll see how it goes. But for today, I'm going to try to see if I can finish some of these book reviews, and beyond that, we will see what gets done. So I will catch y'all in 2 weeks.
If you like werewolves, check out my book Blue Moon, available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. See you next time.